The echo of someone I once knew. Chapter 1, The Whisper in the Fog. I woke up in a place I didn't recognize, though it felt like I'd been there many times before. The sky was pale lavender, tinged with silver, and the air was thick with the scent of something I couldn't quite place, like pages from an old book mixed with morning mist. The ground beneath me was soft, a mossy carpet stretching far beyond my vision. There were trees here, tall and thin, with bark like polished stone and leaves that shimmered in colors that didn't exist in the waking world. And yet, I wasn't frightened. There was no urgency, no danger. Only a quiet pull, as if someone had whispered my name from far away, and I had answered without thinking. I began walking, not because I knew where to go, but because standing still felt like waiting for something I wouldn't remember. It always begins like this. Always. There is a boy. A shadow at first. A flicker. He runs just ahead of me, always out of reach. And though I cannot recall his name, I know he is mine to find. The trees parted to reveal a path of pale stones, each one carved with symbols I couldn't read. Still, I walked. The air grew warmer as I moved, filled with the quiet hum of distant water, like a river remembering a lullaby. My steps were soundless, and even my thoughts felt muffled, as if the world around me was asking for silence. That's when I heard it, a whisper. Not from behind me, not from ahead. It came from within. Don't forget me. The voice was small, gentle, familiar in a way that made my chest ache. I'm trying, I said aloud, though I wasn't sure to whom I spoke. There was no reply. Just the rustle of leaves that had no wind to stir them. I came upon a clearing where the sky opened up above me like a pale ocean. In the center stood a single bench, wooden, old, and worn, though no sign of rot touched it. Resting upon it was a book, bound in soft leather, with no title on the cover. I sat. My fingers hesitated before touching the book, as if it, too, had a memory of its own. When I opened it, I found the pages were empty, until I blinked. Then, slowly, words began to appear. You've been here before. You're looking for him again. You always are. I traced the lines with my fingers. A part of me felt like crying, but the tears never came. They didn't need to. The ache was enough. I don't even know his face, I whispered. But that wasn't true. I saw it every night before waking. I just couldn't carry it back with me. The wind, or something like it, moved through the trees again. This time, I heard laughter. Light, playful, like the sound of someone spinning in circles under a sky full of stars. It was him. I rose and followed the sound. The world shifted subtly, as it often does in these places. The path changed beneath my feet, bending and folding like pages in a pop-up book. A bridge of woven silver grass arched over a stream made of stars. I crossed it carefully, the starlight dancing at my heels. There, on the other side, a small house stood, if you could call it that. It looked like it had been grown, not built, its walls made of twisted ivy and window panes of still water. I approached and knocked, though I wasn't sure why. I knew no one would answer. No one ever did. The door opened anyway. Inside, the house smelled of orange blossoms and fresh ink. The walls were lined with drawings, crayon scrawls of suns with smiling faces, of boats that sailed through clouds, and of two figures standing hand in hand. One was always taller. The other always laughing. The boy. My brother. Though I still couldn't remember his name, the feeling was unmistakable. These drawings were his. Or mine. Or both. I touched one gently. The ink shimmered under my fingers, then faded, like breath on glass. I turned, and there, sitting on a cushion of feathers, was a stuffed rabbit. One ear flopped sideways. Its button eyes were crooked, as if stitched in haste. I remembered that rabbit. Not from here, but from somewhere else. A birthday. A hospital bed. A night of storms and stories whispered under blankets. I miss you, I said. The rabbit didn't answer. It didn't need to. Behind me, the door creaked closed on its own. I felt no fear. Only the faintest pull, like a tide drawing me back out to sea. Outside again, the lavender sky had deepened, turning into a soft indigo. Stars blinked into place one by one, like old friends returning for a gentle visit. I stood beneath them and listened, waiting for the voice again. "You're close," it said. "I don't want to forget," I told the sky. "Then remember." But how? There was no answer. Just the soft hush of everything. I continued walking. Chapter 2: The Market of Forgotten Things. The path narrowed as I walked, winding through tall reeds that swayed without breeze. The air grew thicker, not with weight, but with something like a hush, a silence that pressed gently against my thoughts, inviting me to listen more carefully. I stepped onto a bridge made of glass. Beneath it, memories flowed like water, glimmering visions of children chasing kites, of music drifting from open windows, of hands held tightly in moments I could almost recall. And then, beyond the bridge, I saw it. The Market of Forgotten Things. It wasn't a place I remembered visiting, yet everything about it felt oddly familiar, like a dream I had once tried to hold on to after waking. The stalls were crooked and colorful, scattered in no particular order, glowing faintly in the twilight. Each vendor offered wares that defied explanation: bottles of laughter sealed with ribbon, jars of candlelight that flickered without flame, boxes filled with the scent of someone's favorite day. And memories. So many memories. They hung from lines like laundry, folded in stacks like parchment, or nestled inside tiny lockets. Whispers filled the air, voices without mouths, each one offering pieces of forgotten lives for a price that was never spoken aloud. I wandered slowly between the stalls, my fingers trailing along shelves that buzzed with quiet longing. There was no rush. No one called out. No one tried to sell me anything. It was as if they already knew what I had come for. At one stall, a vendor displayed tiny vials of color, each hue more impossible than the last. One glowed like dusk on the edge of rain, another swirled like moonlight filtered through deep ocean water. A sign read, "Memories of feelings you can't quite name." I paused, entranced. One bottle in particular shimmered with something oddly warm. I picked it up and held it to the light. For a moment, I felt myself standing in a hallway bathed in morning sun, a child tugging at my hand, laughing. But when I blinked, the feeling slipped away. I returned the vial gently. At the heart of the market stood a tent made of shadows. It shimmered in and out of focus, as though the world itself hadn't quite decided if it was real. A small sign hung beside its opening. Lost things remembered. One truth at a time. I stepped inside. The light within was soft and golden, like the inside of a candle. A single figure sat behind a table, an old woman with silver eyes and hands that looked like they had once held every story in the world. Around her swirled motes of dust that didn't fall, only danced in place. She didn't speak. She only smiled and gestured for me to sit. On the table was a mirror, round and deep like a pool of still water. I leaned forward and looked into it. At first, I saw only myself, or rather, the version of me that belonged to this world, calmer, softer, with eyes that had seen many dreams. Then, slowly, the reflection shifted. It blurred and rippled, and from its center emerged a child. A boy. His face was familiar in the way music is familiar before you remember the melody. His smile was crooked. His eyes were the color of dawn. He reached out, and I did too, pressing my fingertips to the glass. I felt nothing, but a warmth spread through my chest as if he had touched my heart instead. "Who is he?" I asked. The old woman placed a small card before me. On it, written in the finest ink, were just 3 words. "He remembers you." I stared at the words for a long time. My throat tightened, but not with sorrow. It was something quieter, an ache shaped like hope. "How do I find him?" I whispered. The woman reached beneath the table and drew out a pouch, no larger than my palm. Inside were 6 stones, each etched with a single word. She laid them before me one by one. "Begin dot. Follow dot. Wait dot. Listen dot. Trust dot. Remember. These are yours," she said, her voice a soft rustle, like wind through pages. "Use them when the path turns quiet." I nodded, though I wasn't sure what that meant. Still, I gathered the stones carefully and tucked them into my pocket. As I stood to leave, the woman raised a hand. "There is a price," she said. I froze. "What kind of price?" "One memory. Of your choosing." My breath caught. I glanced at the mirror. The boy's image had faded. What could I give? I closed my eyes. In the dark, I found a memory I hadn't held in years, a night filled with fireflies and the sound of rain on a tin roof. I had laughed that night, in someone's arms. Perhaps my mother's. Perhaps his. I offered it. The woman accepted without a word. Outside, the market had grown dim. Lanterns floated above the stalls, casting golden pools of light on the cobblestone paths. I walked through them slowly, the stones in my pocket shifting with each step, like little anchors of purpose. At one stall, a man in a velvet coat played a harp made of glass. The notes he struck shimmered through the air like golden thread. I paused, listening. He liked music, I heard myself say, unthinking. The man glanced at me, and his eyes sparkled. "Then follow the song," he said. Before I could ask more, he plucked a final note that hovered in the air like perfume, and turned away. As I passed a stall lined with folded paper birds, one fluttered down to me. I caught it in my palm and unfolded it gently. Inside, written in that same soft ink, were words that made my breath still. "I'm waiting in the place we used to hide." I didn't know where that was. But I knew I would find it. Somehow, the world would show me. It always did, in its own quiet way. I turned a corner, and the market changed. Now the stalls were quieter. The goods less vibrant. More somber. Here were old shoes, one scuffed and the other pristine. Worn journals filled with names crossed out in soft pencil. Music boxes that played only the beginnings of songs. I touched one, a silver box with a small crescent moon carved into its lid. It opened with a sigh and played just 4 notes. 4 notes I knew. I had heard them once, hummed in a low voice under a blanket. A voice beside me, curled against the dark. My hand reached instinctively toward my pocket. The first stone, begin, felt warm against my palm. I understood. I was already beginning. Again. I passed beneath an arch of woven branches and stepped beyond the market. Behind me, the market of forgotten things began to fade. The air shifted. The path became narrow once more, bordered by stones glowing faintly blue. Above me, the sky deepened into a gentle twilight. One by one, stars blinked into existence. And I knew, with a quiet certainty, that somewhere beneath them, he was still waiting. Chapter 3, The Place We Used to Hide. I walked into the twilight with only the memory of a sentence to guide me. "I'm waiting in the place we used to hide." The words echoed like distant wind chimes in my chest, fragile and familiar. I didn't know where this place was, not yet, but I trusted that my feet would remember what my mind could not. The path unfolded beneath me like parchment slowly unrolling. The cobblestones gave way to soft earth, and then to moss, thick and silken underfoot. Trees began to rise again on either side of me, their trunks tall and pale like driftwood, and their leaves shimmering with the muted glow of stars hidden beneath their skin. With each step, the world became quieter. Even the air seemed to move more gently, as if not to disturb the memories hanging from the branches like lanterns. And they were memories. Small glass orbs floated among the trees, each holding a flickering scene. Some glowed warm, glimpses of laughter, of gentle hands braiding hair, of candles flickering during whispered goodnights. Others were colder, fragments of loss and longing, of words never spoken and faces turned away. I passed them slowly, my hand brushing close but never touching. I didn't want to disturb them. Not yet. Eventually, the forest opened into a small glade, and there, nestled in its center, was a house. No larger than a garden shed, made of old wood and winding vines, with a roof of moss and lilacs. A place that looked like it had grown from the earth itself. I stopped. My breath caught in my throat. I knew this place. I didn't remember it the way you remember birthdays or addresses. I remembered it the way a scent reminds you of home, or the way a song tugs at your chest without explanation. This was it. The place we used to hide. The door creaked softly as I pushed it open. Inside, the world was small and golden. Dust motes floated lazily in the warm air. A single window let in just enough light to cast long, gentle shadows across the wooden floor. There were pillows on the ground, faded with age, and shelves lined with hand-carved figurines. Animals. Stars. A tiny boat with sails made from stitched cloth. I knelt down, running my fingers along the floorboards. There, scratched into the wood with clumsy hands, were two sets of initials. One of them was mine. The other. I traced the letters, but they made no sound in my mind. No name came. Only a feeling. Something like love. Something like loss. And then, from the corner of the room, I heard it. A faint giggle. High and soft, like wind slipping through tall grass. I turned quickly, but there was no one there. Instead, on the far wall, I saw a drawing. Faded crayon strokes on old wood. Two figures beneath a tree. One tall, one small. Holding hands. Just like in the dream. Just like in the mirror. I stepped closer. My heart thudded softly. The taller figure wore a scarf, the same color as the one around my neck. The smaller one had a red mark on his cheek. A birthmark. I remembered that now. The boy in the mirror had one too. Something shifted behind me. When I turned, a new object had appeared on the floor. A toy. A small spinning top, carved from dark wood, its edges worn smooth. I picked it up. It was heavier than it looked. I gave it a gentle spin, and it twirled silently, casting a soft hum that filled the little house. The sound curled in my ears and heart like a lullaby I had forgotten how to sing. As the top spun, the air thickened, the golden light deepening to a warm amber. The shadows moved, folding inward, and from them stepped a boy. Not flesh and blood. Not entirely. More like memory given shape. A shimmer. A whisper. A presence I felt rather than saw. He didn't speak. He only looked at me. And in his gaze, I saw everything I had lost. Hiding beneath bedsheets during storms. Secret passwords shared in the dark. Late-night whispers about faraway kingdoms. The warmth of a hand grasped in fear. The comfort of knowing someone would always be there, just a breath away. Tears gathered in my eyes, but I didn't cry. There was nothing sad here. Only the sweetness of something once real, still echoing. I reached for him, and though my hand passed through air, I felt him. Like mist on skin. Like the memory of sun. I'm still looking, I said. I don't want to forget you. He smiled then, slow and soft. And then he spoke. You're getting closer. The house began to fade. Not vanish, just blur. As if the dream was shifting again, calling me forward. I stepped outside, and the glade had changed. Where once was stillness, now the wind moved gently through the trees, carrying with it the scent of orange peels and rain. In the sky, birds flew in slow circles, tracing shapes I almost recognized. The path ahead was new. But I wasn't afraid. I reached into my pocket and touched the next stone. Follow. And I did. I followed the wind, the fading sound of his laughter, the feeling of having almost remembered something important. I walked until the trees thinned and the world opened again into a wide plain of tall grass and light. The horizon shimmered, not with heat, but with promise. Behind me, the little house stood quiet, like a closed book on a shelf. But its story wasn't finished. I would return. I always did. Chapter 4, The Field of Still Time. The world shifted as I walked. Not abruptly, not with sound or motion, but like a dream slowly rewriting itself around me. Trees thinned to saplings, then to grass. The moss gave way to wildflowers, and then to endless open plains, rolling under a sky that no longer changed. It was dusk here, permanently so. The sun hung low on the horizon, frozen in place like a painting. Its light stretched long and golden, casting soft shadows across the field that never moved. Time, I realized, was not passing in this place. It was simply resting. I stood still for a moment, trying to feel the rhythm of my breath. Even that seemed slower now. Softer. As though I had stepped into a moment stretched so thin it might break if I moved too quickly. So I walked gently. The grass was tall, swaying in a breeze I couldn't feel. It reached up to my waist, thick with tiny white flowers that chimed like porcelain when disturbed. Each step I took released faint notes, soft and harmonious, like a memory humming just beneath the surface of silence. In the distance, a figure sat beneath a tree. A single tree, perfectly round, its leaves the color of candlelight. It stood alone, as though the world had grown around it carefully and deliberately, not wanting to crowd it. I made my way toward it slowly. Not because I feared the figure, but because some part of me already knew it was him. And I didn't want to startle the memory. As I approached, I could see him more clearly. The boy sat cross-legged in the grass, head tilted back, watching the unmoving sky. He wore a shirt far too big for him, sleeves nearly covering his hands. A red mark bloomed faintly on his cheek. He looked exactly as I remembered. Or maybe as I wanted to remember. When I stopped a few paces away, he turned to me. His eyes were wide with recognition, but he didn't speak. He only smiled, timid, unsure, but warm. I sat beside him in the grass. The petals brushed our skin, but didn't disturb the stillness of the field. Together, we watched the sky that would not change. After some time, how much, I couldn't tell, he finally spoke. This is my favorite moment. His voice was small, not because he was afraid, but because the moment asked for quiet. Why? I asked. He glanced sideways at me, eyes gleaming like light through honey. Because it never leaves. I nodded. I understood more than I could explain. Here in this field, everything stayed. No seconds passed. No goodbyes arrived. He plucked a white flower and held it up. We used to call these time bells. The name rang in my memory like a bell itself. We did. He nodded. Because they chime when you move them. And because you said they could stop time if you listened just right. I smiled. Did it work? He looked at me very seriously, then leaned in and whispered. Only once. This time. His words settled over me like a blanket. The sky above was still unchanged. I watched him as he lay back, folding his hands behind his head. You forgot me, he said, not accusingly. Simply. I looked down at my hands. I didn't want to. I know, he whispered. But you had to. The world was too loud. Silence followed. But it wasn't empty. It was full of everything we didn't say. I reached into my pocket and pulled out one of the stones the old woman had given me. Wait. I placed it gently in the grass between us. He stared at it. Then at me. Do you remember when we hid in the cupboard during the thunderstorm? I blinked. The memory arrived like a long-lost letter slipping through the door. A flash of lightning. A cardboard box. My arm around his shoulders. His quiet, stubborn insistence that thunder couldn't touch us if we counted backwards together. You counted so fast, I said. We reached negative numbers. He laughed. And it was the clearest sound in the field. The time bells stirred. We were brave, he said. We still are. His expression softened. I think you're more brave now. You came all this way. I didn't respond. There was no need to. The air grew warmer, though the sun hadn't moved. He sat up, legs folded under him. You'll have to leave this place, he said, almost apologetically. You can't stay. I know. But you'll remember it now. I nodded. Promise me something, he asked. Anything. When you wake up, look for me. My throat tightened. But you're only here. He shook his head. No. I'm always with you. Even when you can't see me. Even when you forget again. I reached out, and this time, when I touched his hand, it didn't pass through. It was warm. Solid. Real. Even if only for this moment. Even if only because time had stopped to let us remember. A breeze stirred then, gentle, tentative, like the world had taken a breath. Around us, the field began to glow. The time bells shimmered. The air changed. He stood. And I did too. You have to go, he said again. But I'll be waiting. I took one last look at the tree. At the field. At him. Where should I go next? He pointed toward the edge of the field, where the grass gave way to a staircase made of mist. Where the memories sleep. That's where you'll find the rest. And then, like a painting gently smudged, he faded. Not gone. Just distant. I stood for a while, letting the stillness wrap around me one final time. Then I stepped forward, onto the staircase. The bells rang behind me. Soft. Clear. Certain. And I followed the sound, deeper into the quiet. Chapter 5, The Library of Sleeping Memories. I descended the mist staircase slowly, each step echoing with a softness I could feel more than hear. The world below was quiet, not silent, but hushed in the way old places are. Sacred places. As though even time was too respectful to raise its voice here. The mist cleared gradually. And then, there it was. The library. It stood impossibly vast, stretching far beyond the visible horizon in every direction. Its walls were made of midnight stone, veined with faint light that pulsed like breathing. The doors were tall and arched, carved with symbols I didn't recognize but somehow understood. I reached out. The doors opened without sound. Inside, the air was warm and still, like pages left untouched for 100 years. The smell of aged parchment, dried flowers, and something faintly sweet, honey, perhaps, filled my lungs. Shelves towered around me. Not rows. Forests. Books of every shape and size, bound in velvet, bark, glass, even clouds. They floated, nested, rested in nooks that changed shape as I walked by. Some glowed faintly. Others seemed to pulse with breath, as if dreaming their contents until someone remembered them. Above me, constellations glimmered not on a ceiling, but on a sky. The stars shifted slowly, aligning in unfamiliar patterns. A soft hum filled the space, as if every memory contained within was humming its own gentle lullaby. I took a step forward and nearly cried out. Because there, right in front of me, was a book with my name on it. Bound in dark blue leather. stitched in silver thread. No title. Just my name, in handwriting I didn't recognize, but knew was mine. I touched it. The book didn't open, it exhaled. And suddenly, I was no longer standing. I was inside. Not in a dream within a dream. Not quite. I stood on a quiet street lined with trees that hadn't existed for years. The sky was golden, the hour somewhere between day and night. A small boy ran ahead of me, laughing, his arms spread wide like wings. Him. It was him. "Come on, you're too slow," he called over his shoulder. And I ran. Not because I wanted to catch him, but because I didn't want to lose this moment again. We turned a corner, into a park I hadn't thought about in years. The swings still creaked. The paint on the slide still peeled. And on the bench beneath the big elm tree, someone had left 2 cups of juice, just like that one summer. We sat. We drank. And the moment stretched gently, tenderly, as though it knew how much I needed it. "You forgot again," he said, not sadly. "I didn't want to." He nodded. "It's okay. That's what this place is for." "The library?" He pointed around us. The sky above shimmered, and for a moment, I saw the shelves again, the books, the stars, the glowing titles. And then the vision fell back into the park like a feather settling. It keeps what you're not ready to carry. And now I'm ready. He tilted his head. "You wouldn't be here if you weren't." I closed my eyes. 1,000 questions sat on my tongue. "What's your name?" I asked. He smiled. "You won't remember it out there. But in here, it's Jonah." I whispered it. Jonah. And for the first time in all the dreams, it didn't slip away. He handed me something then. A book. Smaller than the one I had seen on the shelf. Bound in soft cloth, warm in my hands. "It's yours," he said. I opened it. And every page was filled with memories I had forgotten. Hiding under blankets. The smell of his hair after rain. The way he always skipped the number 7 when he counted aloud. The sound of his laugh when I let him win at cards. The way he held onto my sleeve when he was nervous. How I used to tuck his stuffed rabbit under his arm before he fell asleep. And then, the memory I didn't expect. A hospital room. A storm outside. My voice, soft and breaking. "You don't have to be scared." His voice, smaller than I remembered. "But what if I go where you can't follow?" I had promised something, then. Words I didn't even recall until now. "I'll follow you. Every night. As long as it takes." I couldn't speak. Jonah didn't need me to. He leaned his head against my shoulder. "You've been following me for so long." I couldn't stop. "I know." The book in my lap closed itself. Gently. When I looked up, the world around me was dissolving again, the park, the bench, the cups. The light faded back into the quiet of the library. And I was standing once more before the shelf where I had found my book. It was glowing now. Soft. Gold. Certain. I turned, and saw the next shelf. A smaller book. No name. Just a single word on the spine. Us. I reached for it. And just as before, I wasn't reading it, I was living it. Chapter 6, The Letter He Left for Me. The moment I touched the book titled Us, the world shifted again. Not with noise. Not with light. Just a soft folding of everything around me, like a blanket being drawn up over my shoulders. A deep calm settled in my chest, the kind I hadn't felt in a long, long time. The kind of stillness that lives in the last breath before waking, the final moment of a dream before it's gone. I was no longer in the library. I stood at the edge of a lake. The water was still, mirror smooth, and reflected the stars so perfectly that for a moment, I wasn't sure where sky ended and water began. The trees lining the shore glowed faintly, their leaves like bits of memory lit from within. The moon hung low and large, not cold or distant, but watching, gently, kindly. A small dock stretched out into the water. And at the end of it, something waited for me. Not someone. Not this time. But something. I walked the dock slowly, each step creaking beneath my feet with the familiarity of childhood. The wind here didn't move, it simply existed. Like breath held in reverence. At the very end of the dock sat a box. Small. Wooden. Simple. No lock. No key. Just presence. I knelt down and lifted the lid. Inside, there was a folded piece of paper. A letter. The edges were worn soft, the ink faded slightly, but not unreadable. I held it carefully, as though it might vanish if I moved too quickly. And then I opened it. His handwriting. Small. A little uneven. Just like when we used to make treasure maps and he would draw every S backwards. If you're reading this, it means you found your way back to me. I don't know how long it took, but I always believed you would. You never really forgot me. Not completely. Not where it counts. Sometimes, forgetting isn't letting go. It's making space for remembering later. I know you tried to hold on. I know you cried in places you couldn't name, for reasons you couldn't explain. I know how heavy it is to carry something you can't see. But you did it. You carried me all this way. Thank you. I'm not scared anymore. You don't have to come find me again. I'm already there. Every time you laugh the way you used to when I made up stories. Every time you look at the stars and feel like they're singing. Every time you reach for something you can't quite name but still believe in. That's me. I'm not lost. I'm part of you now. And I always will be. By the time I reached the last line, I couldn't stop the tears. Not the kind that ache. Not the kind that drown. But the kind that heal. The kind that say, I remember now. I folded the letter gently, holding it to my chest. The stars above shimmered. The moon dipped lower, as if bowing. The wind stirred at last, whispering through the trees like an exhale from the sky itself. From behind me, I heard a voice. Not in my ears. In my heart. Ready to wake up. I turned, but there was no one there. And yet, I felt him. Not far away. Not even beside me. But within. I stood, the letter still warm in my hand. The dock behind me slowly faded into mist. The lake dimmed. The sky brightened, not like morning, but like remembering. And I walked. Back along the path. Back through the quiet. Back through the world that had carried me through dreams, through whispers, through echoes of a boy I had once held and would never lose again. The stars blinked goodbye. The moon closed its eyes. And everything became soft. Like pages closing. Like arms wrapping around you. Like the hush before waking. Epilogue. I opened my eyes. The real world, if that's what it is, waited for me. Muted sunlight filtered through the curtains. The air smelled of morning and distant rain. My room was just as I had left it. Except for the book. There, resting gently on my bedside table, was a small cloth-bound volume. No title. No author. Just a soft warmth that I couldn't explain. And beside it, a single sheet of paper. A drawing. Crayon lines. Two figures. One tall. One small. Holding hands beneath a tree. And scrawled in the corner, backwards, S and all. Us.